Rabbi Beryl Wein opens his autobiography, Teach Them Diligently, by describing his experience meeting Rabbi Yitzchak Halevi Herzog Zatzal when he was a teenager. After delivering a shiur in Yiddish, Rav Herzog shared that he had gone to the Pope begging him to return thousands of Jewish children who had been given to Catholic institutions during the Shoah in order to save their lives. But the Pope flat out refused to return these children. The children had been baptized, there was nothing to be done. Rav Herzog was devastated. While these children were alive, they were still spiritually captives. Rav Herzog then said to his audience, I cannot save those thousands of Jewish children, but I ask of you, how are you going to rebuild the Jewish people? And as each individual shook Rav Herzog's hand and received a bracha, he said, did you understand what I said to you? Don't forget it. And this was the defining moment in which Rabbi Wein says he felt a calling to serve Klal Yisrael. In Parshat Vaetchanan, Moshe describes the experience of Matan Torah for a generation that was not physically there. They did not see it themselves. We often compare the Aseret HaDibrot found in Vaetchanan to the Aseret HaDibrot in Yitro, but the parallels do not really end there. In fact, in order to appreciate Moshe's retelling of Aseret HaDibrot, we have to go all the way back to Parshat Shmot, to a different revelation. It was in Parshat Shmot that Hashem revealed himself to Moshe. Where did Moshe find Hashem? Vayavo el har ha'elokim choreva. In the next pasuk, we learn, Vayar v'hinei hasna bo'er ba'esh. In Vaetchanan, we do not see references to Sinai. Moshe talks about Yom asher amanata lifnei Hashem elokecha b'chorev. And then, in the very next pasuk, Moshe describes the mountain, V'hahar bo'er ba'esh adlev hashamayim. He uses the same language to describe Har Chorev as being bo'er ba'esh. So what is the significance of this parallel? In Shmot, Hashem is calling on Moshe to take responsibility for the Jewish people. He wants Moshe to see that Bnei Israel are in need of physical and spiritual redemption, and it will be Moshe's mission to be Hashem's emissary in carrying out this process. What we may not realize is that Bnei Israel received the exact same calling. Hashem calls on Bnei Israel at Matan Torah not just to take on some rules, but to take on the responsibility of being Am HaNivchar, to be a Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, to be an Or LaGoyim. Receiving the Torah is a big privilege, but it's also a big responsibility. Torah is the blueprint and the entire purpose of creation. Bnei Israel received that awesome responsibility to ensure that Torah informs the values of this world. On Tisha B'Av, we read in the Haftarah that Hashem brought Galus al Ozvam et Torati asher natati lifnehem. While Chazal relate this to the way in which Torah was learned, perhaps this is not just about Torah learning, but about one's entire orientation to Torah. Lest we think that this is the responsibility of previous generations, ones that were closer to or physically at Matan Torah, Moshe disavows us of this idea. Lo et avotenu karata Hashem et habrit hazot, ki itanu anachnu ele po hayom kulanu chayim. It is up to us, those of us here today, to take on that responsibility for the Torah and its values. Because if it's not us, then who else will do it? As Rabbanim, we may feel a particular calling to serve Klal Yisrael and to convey our Masorah, but our job does not end there. It is our job to ensure that our Balabatim, our Talmidim, and all Jews whom we encounter hear their calling as well, to infuse their lives with Torah and to uphold the very Torah that Hashem used to create this world.